Hi, thanks for joining me on today's LinkedIn Live event, Creating Policies That Empower Your Team and Drive Results. I'm Ral West, and in this LinkedIn Live session, I'm going to show you how to craft clear, values-driven policies that actually support your team instead of slowing them down. We'll explore how to use policies as tools for clarity, consistency, and empowerment so your business can run more smoothly even when you're not in the room. So you will learn the difference between restrictive rules and empowering policies, and how to create policies your team will actually follow, and why clear policies lead to better decision making, stronger culture, and less stress for you. You want to build a culture where your team takes ownership, hits goals, and loves coming to work? Well, it starts with clear policies that align your people around outcomes, not just tasks. Let's start with a discussion about your company's culture. Your culture is the foundation upon which your business is built. Without a clear culture that is established intentionally, your company's culture may be established by accident, and that may or may not be what will best serve you and your customers and your team. So, what are the essential elements for any corporate culture? Well, number one, it's clear values and mission. The company's values, beliefs, and guiding principles should be explicitly defined and widely understood by all employees. The company's long term goals need to align with its culture. Number two, leadership alignment. Leaders should embody and reinforce the company culture in their actions and decisions. Leadership style and communication is important. Don't underestimate the impact of this on your culture. Three, open communication. Employees should feel free to communicate ideas, concerns, and feedback without fear of retaliation. Number four, create a culture of feedback so progress isn't a mystery and improvement is continuous. Five, employee engagement and empowerment. Employees should feel a sense of ownership and pride in the company's mission, with opportunities to contribute meaningfully. The culture drives employee engagement, collaboration, and accountability. Six, adaptability. Cultures need to allow for flexibility and growth as both the company and the environment evolve. Seven, accountability. Clear expectations and accountability systems ensure everyone is aligned with the cultural values. This includes policies and procedures and the role of formal rules in shaping day-to-day behavior. And finally, number eight, team alignment. This is critical. I'd like to share with you the cornerstone of our company culture at Hawaiian Vacations, the business my husband and I owned for 25 years before we sold it to Alaska Airlines. It was called our work ethic, and that's WERQ. These were our guiding principles. The W stood for win-win. The E stood for efficiency, the R for responsibility, and the Q for quality. These guiding principles formed the framework of our policies in terms of our guidelines for customer service, our relationships with our vendors, and how we interacted within the company too. We use this framework to intentionally shift our company culture to become more customer sensitive and responsive, to be more quality conscious, to take a long-term view of success and adopt a participative management style, and to embrace a systems approach to operations. As you evaluate your company's culture, be sure you take a look at your organizational structure. What is it? Does it make sense? Does everyone understand what it is? What are your feedback loops? How do you listen to employees and allow the culture to evolve? Do you have policies or procedures in place to ensure that your employees are heard? And human resources. What techniques are you using for embedding your culture in your hiring, your training, and your daily operations? These are opportunities to convey the company's foundational beliefs and policies. And rules. What are the rules by which your business operates? Do you have any cardinal rules? Like maybe something like our primary objective is to delight our customers, or we always respond to customer issues within 48 hours, or safety first. Whatever it is, write them down and communicate them. Having clear rules and guidelines and communicating them clearly in all of these areas allows your team to make decisions and take action without seeking approval for each and every move. This is what empowers them and frees up your time. So remember, be sure to codify your culture. Don't leave it to chance. Culture is the air that your team breathes. It's the unwritten rules of how people behave, make decisions, and treat each other. If you don't define your culture, it will define itself, usually by default if it's not designed. And remember that policies are where your values meet your operations. As an example, if you say we value innovation, but you end up punishing mistakes, your culture is saying something other than that policy. So double check that. Here are some culture building policies to consider. Your core values with clear behavioral examples. Have some hiring guidelines to make sure you align your culture and make sure it fits with performance. Have recognition programs that reward aligned behavior. And have some conflict resolution frameworks that can help you prevent toxicity. It's important to build a culture of open communication, feedback, and continuous improvement. You need a clearly defined communication system. So, in order for your team, and especially any new additions to your team, to function properly, they need to have this clearly defined communication system. And I don't mean just, they can tell each other in passing, or they can randomly text each other. Lots of mistakes and quality issues can be traced to poor communication like that. So take the time to consider the smoothest, easiest, and most inclusive way for your team to communicate with each other, within the team and with other teams. You have to consider, is your team all in one place, or are some members located remotely? That can make a difference as to which system will work best for you. Remember, great teams aren't built on silence, they're built on communication. So, in order to make your culture tangible, you must communicate it. Put your values into your onboarding systems. Don't just hand them a brochure, but talk about what the values look like and how they're applied day to day. Use your values in your performance reviews. Make it clear that behavior matters. It's not just the output, but it's how we interact with each other. Celebrate the culture carriers. Publicly recognize people who live the mission and the values. Let's talk about feedback for a moment. Feedback in most companies is either too vague, like, you're doing fine, or it's too infrequent, maybe only once a year performance reviews, or it's too reactive. You get feedback when something goes wrong. Well, that's not exactly how you best grow people or businesses. A high feedback culture includes things like weekly one-on-ones, a space that you allow for coaching and not just updates. Post-project reviews, going over what worked, what didn't, and what's next. Have some peer feedback loops. Encourage cross-functional insights. And Use 360-degree feedback, where the managers get feedback too. That's an important circular loop to close. And remember that feedback isn't criticism, it's clarity, it's coaching. It's how you close that gap between your current performance and potential performance. So, how do you set these policies? Number one is you want to make feedback part of your leadership cadence. Encourage two-way conversations, not just top-down lectures. Make sure you reinforce what's working, not just what needs fixing. And reward vulnerability and honesty, not politics. Let's talk a bit about getting engagement and empowerment in your organization. You want to empower decision making at every level. If your team can't act without asking for permission, particularly from you, your business is slow and fragile. It can't operate well without you. And remember, empowerment doesn't mean chaos. It means you have guiding principles and clear boundaries. Your policies should define the what and the why, and leave some room for your team to decide the how. So, what does this look like? Well, one element can be to set budget thresholds. For example, if a purchase is under $250, go ahead. You have authority and permission. Where do you define the escalation of a particular issue? Like if a client issue can't be resolved in one day, it goes to the manager. Another is to create checklists and decision trees so your team members know how to think and not just what to do. Here's an example. Say there's a customer support rep that doesn't need permission to refund up to $100. This means they can act quickly and delight the client. They're not slowed down by having to go check with somebody to get permission. It's also important to empower your team by being crystal clear before day one. This means you need to incorporate this into your hiring. And one of the most empowering things that you can do for your team is to set clear expectations from the start. When your culture, your values, and performance standards are well defined, the right people will come to you and they will rise to the occasion, and the wrong ones will opt out. Be upfront about what success looks like in your organization. Share openly what won't be tolerated, and show them how they'll be rewarded when they deliver. Empowered teams don't happen by accident. They're built on intentional policies that encourage growth and ownership and trust. You want to clearly define the roles and responsibilities and expectations. And the very first thing you need to do is get very clear first on the purpose of the position for which you are hiring, whether it's an employee position or a contractor. You write a job description that clearly defines the role and the responsibilities and expectations. A trick that I use is to plainly spell out this is what a good job looks like and what it is not. I kind of call this, fire them before you hire them. You need to make sure that they understand the parameters and the boundaries of the job, and that violating them will result in termination. The more clarity, the better, right up front. Quantify your expectations as much as possible. This is also the time to communicate your company's vision, values, and culture. Don't wait until after you hire someone to tell them what your company stands for, what you value, and what your goals are. They should know all of this before they decide to join your company. Also discuss compensation, opportunities for advancement, benefits, etc. That's one way to help you ensure that you get a good fit. This is your opportunity to sell them on working with your company. Then remember that the hiring system does not stop when they say yes. Successful hiring has as much to do with the onboarding system you have in place as the actual selection of an employee or team member. Be sure that you design an orientation and training system. Provide as much written documentation as possible. Do you have an employee manual? Be sure you get all the appropriate human resources forms filled out. Assign someone, like a mentor, to welcome and introduce them to the team and show them the ropes. And then be sure that you follow up to address any concerns. Give them ample opportunities for questions and feedback. And check back with your new hire and their mentor at the end of the first week, the first month, the first quarter to see how they're doing. Show them that you care. Your training system is very important. What do you need to have in place to ensure that each person in each job or position has the adequate training to perform well and produce the desired outcome for your company and for your customers, both your internal and your external customers? Have your job descriptions ready. Identify for each position or primary task what that good job looks like. And remember, the more clarity, the better. Give more definition and details to each job description. And have job manuals, step by step, detailed procedures for how the job is to be performed. Include how to use any equipment properly. You can use videos to document these things too. It doesn't have to be just in writing. And again, make sure that you're communicating your company values. Make sure they know what your guiding principles and culture statements are. If you want your team to deliver their best, you have to give them the tools and the culture to thrive. And that starts with providing regular training and development so your team is always growing. Encouraging open feedback to create a learning-focused environment. And support experimentation without fear of failure. Because, innovation only happens when it's safe to try. It's wise to consider establishing other human resources systems and policies as well. Things like your performance evaluations. Establish a policy of quarterly or semi-annual reviews and spell out how these will be conducted and by whom. Disciplinary actions need to be spelled out. Now, you always hope this is not needed, but if it does, it's very helpful to have these policies and procedures spelled out in advance. That way, everyone knows what to expect and what to do when these situations arise. Make sure you have feedback loops in place to ensure that you always know how your team is thinking and feeling. Make sure you're up to date with any compliance that your local or state agencies require. Check with the local laws and make sure that you're in compliance with all regulations. Look at your benefits management. How do you track your sick days and your vacation time? And what are your policies regarding those, as well as things like jury duty or any kind of maternity or paternity leave? All those policies need to be spelled out so everyone knows what to anticipate. Make sure you have all of these in an employee manual that is easily accessible to everyone. Creating policies that empower your team starts with accountability. When people feel supported, they step up. And when accountability is baked into your culture, you don't have to micromanage. Your team can lead themselves. As a leader, you need to set clear expectations for individual roles and responsibilities, establish regular check-ins to monitor progress, and encourage peer-to-peer accountability as well. Encourage every member to be dedicated to delivering their best, resulting in a more efficient, cohesive, and successful team. Every team is a group of people, each with passions, superpowers, quirks, histories, and lives that are unique. Successful, winning teams know that when they honor, respect, and protect each other, they can discover how to combine their superpowers to do amazing things. They stay curious and deepen their appreciation and care for each other. In time, with practice, trust develops, and then the team becomes unstoppable. You want to make sure that you have alignment in your team, working towards a common goal. Now, alignment is important because it improves efficiency. Aligning your business can help remove those inefficiencies and streamline processes. It increases productivity. When departments work together, they can increase productivity and improve business outcomes. Alignment promotes positive outcomes. Aligning your business can help promote those positive outcomes, such as increased profit and customer retention. And it ensures long-term viability for your business. Remember, when your departments work together, they can help ensure your company's long-term viability. So here are some ways to achieve team alignment. Have regular check-ins and team meetings. Ensure everyone understands the team's priorities and how to achieve them. Foster a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect. And get alignment on common goals so everyone is working toward the same target. And celebrate the wins. You want to create an aligned and outcome-oriented culture within a team. And in order to do this, you need to establish a system for goals and incentives, whereby the leaders clearly define those common goals that are both ambitious and attainable, that you establish a feedback culture to monitor progress, you identify areas for improvement, as well as providing recognition for both individual and team achievements. So consider having some bonus plans. Some are for individual goals, some for company-wide goals. So individual goals for each employee might outline performance criteria for a bonus payment. You can use a point system, and maybe this is derived from your periodic evaluations. Maybe part of the bonus is tied to the overall net profit and part from the achievement of individual objectives. And maybe part of it is a subjective evaluation of the individual. Sometimes bonuses can be based upon a percentage of salary. There's many ways to create a bonus plan that works for your business. Play around with it. But first, you need to set clear, ambitious, and attainable goals. If your team doesn't have a scoreboard, they're playing blind. And yet, in many businesses, employees are told what to do, but not why, and not how their work connects to the company outcomes. And they don't know what success looks like. That's a big leadership miss. When goals are unclear, people default to, checking boxes instead of creating results. You want to link the performance to the incentives. Here's a powerful truth that I've seen in every successful business that I've built or that I've mentored. What gets measured gets managed, and what gets rewarded gets repeated. Too many businesses reward just presence instead of performance, and then they wonder why their team is just coasting or disengaged. So what's the solution? Tie the incentives to results that matter. Here's some ways to structure some performance-based incentives. Some of the bonuses can be based on team KPIs, like sales growth, project completion, or customer satisfaction. They can be profit sharing or quarterly distributions based on your EBITDA or margin goals. There can be individual rewards for innovation, for client wins, or maybe peer-nominated excellence. And you can also have tiered commission structures for those who are in revenue-generating roles. Remember that incentives create alignment. people do more of what pays off. Here's an example of such a policy. There's a fulfillment team that receives a monthly bonus if all orders ship within 48 hours, or the customer satisfaction scores stay above 90%, or maybe inventory discrepancies stay below 2%. So with these, instead of just clocking in, the team now owns these outcomes. So this is what empowering goal setting looks like. You have company-wide goals that are aligned with revenue or customer satisfaction or growth targets. You have team goals broken down by department or function, and individual goals tied to a role-specific impact, not just a list of tasks. Here's another example. There's a service business that wants to improve client retention. Instead of just telling the customer success team to keep your clients happy, they set a clear goal. The goal? Maintain a 90% or greater client renewal rate each quarter. How do they do this? They have weekly check-ins. They have proactive reporting, and they're able to find those early warning signals, identify them. And the bonus could be a $500 quarterly bonus if the goal is met. And the result is that the team focuses not just on responding to problems, but on preventing them. So, how do you implement these outcome-based goals? You start with the end in mind. What's the real outcome that you want? Your revenue, your leads, customer retention, efficiency? Then break it down by team or role and define how each person contributes to that outcome. Make it measurable. Don't have any vague goals. Track it with numbers and deadlines. Tie it to decision making. Encourage your team members to ask, does this help us hit our target? Here's an example. A marketing team adopts a simple end-of-week ritual. Each team member shares one win, one lesson, one thing they'd do differently next time. The result is, over time, the team members improve faster and feel safer speaking up. So here's what we've learned works best. You need to set ambitious but attainable team goals. Make the targets clear and make it matter. Tie individual performance to incentives. Set transparent criteria for bonuses to reward both effort and achievement. When everyone knows what winning looks like and is empowered to go after it, you won't just get better results. You get a stronger, more motivated team. In our business, we celebrated every win. We had profit sharing, bonuses, and team celebrations were a regular thing. Because when people know what's expected and feel valued, they don't just show up, they shine. And that helps your business shine. So here's some more keys to incentive success. Be transparent, share the formula and the criteria. Be timely. Rewards should follow closely after the result. Be fair, don't move the goalposts, and be aligned. The rewards should match your business priorities. One thing about policies is, and there's a misconception, policies are not about control. They're about clarity. And too many business owners associate policies with bureaucracy and red tape, outdated employee handbooks that sit on a shelf collecting dust. And these are not useful. And there's a big difference between having restrictive rules and having empowering policies. Because when created intentionally, policies are one of the most powerful leadership tools you have. Why is that? Well, because policies define what winning looks like. They set expectations. They eliminate confusion. They empower your team to make decisions without waiting on you. And when used correctly, they drive performance, engagement, and retention without constant oversight. So policies aren't meant to micromanage. They're meant to free your team by giving them clarity so everyone knows what's expected, autonomy so they know how to make decisions, consistency so everyone is aligned on standards and behavior, and motivation because they're rewarded for results, not just busy work. And the result you get is a business that doesn't rely on constant check ins and approvals and your personal oversight to function at a high level. When people know the rules of the game and what winning looks like, they show up stronger. So, here are some decision making policies that you might want to consider. Document your decision making criteria. Define what's in each person's lane and what's not, and when they need to escalate that decision to someone else. Train your team based on scenarios and not just script. Give your team the thinking framework so that they can respond with confidence. Review the outcomes. Focus on whether the decision served the customer and the business, and not whether it just followed a script perfectly. Here's an example from one business. This business had a growing team and a big goal. They wanted to reduce their project turnaround time by 30% in one quarter. And here's what they did. They created a policy that empowered the operations team to make on-the-spot decisions on timelines under 5 days. They set a clear, ambitious team goal and tied it to a quarterly bonus. They implemented weekly feedback check-ins to track progress. They recognized and rewarded people publicly who solved those bottlenecks. And the result? Project timelines dropped by 32%. Employee engagement scores rose by 40%. Leadership did not have to micromanage. This wasn't magic. It was the result of clear policies that aligned and empowered the team. So here are my final thoughts on leadership through policy. There's a mindset shift that I want to leave you with. Policies aren't about control. They're about clarity. And they aren't just for human resources. They're a core leadership tool. And they don't stifle culture, they shape and strengthen it. When your team knows what's expected, why it matters, and how they'll be supported and how they'll be rewarded, they rise to the challenge. They take ownership and they grow your business with you. If you liked what you learned today, please visit my website to learn more about what I teach. I have an online course and a mastermind in which I teach entrepreneurs to be the owner, not the operator of their business. I believe it's possible to run a successful business and still have the freedom to enjoy the life you desire. Sign up to watch my free webinar. Go to my website, www.ralwest.com. And thanks for being here with me today. Bye.